Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. And tonight we've got quite a lot to get through, actually. It's a very, very interesting time here that we've got going on in South Africa rugby and in South Africa as a whole. You know, it's a very difficult time for the country with all the current looting and the issues happening in Natal and Gauteng. So yeah, it's not been a good start to the week from a South African perspective. It's really, really quite upsetting stuff like that. But we'll just try and focus on the rugby and try and sort of at least there's something that can try and sort of cheer us up and stuff like that. The good news was in terms of the tour is that there haven't been any major issues within Cape Town, for example. So there's no issues about the match in Cape Town maybe being called off or anything like that. All is well in terms of the players being ready, in terms of the manager being ready. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to be talking about the Stormers match potentially being cancelled this weekend. We're going to be talking about the match on Wednesday and what we expect to sort of see out of the sides and stuff like that. And we're going to be talking about a little bit of Australia versus France tomorrow. We're going to be talking about a little bit about the Currie Cup update in terms of what's happening in the Currie Cup. So that's what we're talking about for the next sort of half an hour. So please let's get smashing that like button. See quite a few people already up in here. Let me know where you're watching from. Obviously understand a lot of people probably won't be in the comments like that. People might be delayed because you're watching the presidential address and stuff like that. As I said, it really is a horrible time in the country at the moment. But we'll persevere. We've been through worse. We'll get through this. But yeah, in terms of the rugby, right? We'll start with what we saw today in the press conferences. So yesterday, first of all, the Springboks finally returned to training, which is really, really positive. I mean, but also at the same time, they've missed a week of training. So that's pretty worrying from a South African perspective, the fact that the Springboks pretty much just didn't train for about an entire week. You kind of wonder, I'm not sure if they were allowed to sort of go to the gym and stuff like that, or what the issue was there, and, how much they've been able to sort of do fitness stuff. But they've trained for the squad for the first time yesterday, which means they literally had yesterday, today, tomorrow. They've got 3 days. 3 days to try and get together and sort of put together a game plan that they're going to then enact on Wednesday up against the British and Irish Lions. And what we're obviously going to see within the side is obviously how strong it is, simply because that we couldn't get the Georgia game happening. So as a result, we've had to name a very, very strong SAA side. So it's basically a Springbok side. Let's not beat around the bush. There's 11 World Cup winners in the starting lineup. It's not an SAA side. It is a Springbok side. But we had to do it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about whether we think it's fair if the Stormers game does get cancelled this weekend, where we're sitting and stuff like that. But yeah, let's start getting into the comments. Let me know what you think is going to happen this weekend. Should the game be called off? We've got a poll in the comments with 20 votes over there. So get voting. Should the Stormers versus the Lions be replaced with another SAA match? And we'll talk about it from a tour perspective, whether it's right for the tour. In terms of multiple sort of revenues, is it the safest option? Is that why they're going with it? Is it just a ploy to get Springboks more game time? Is it an opportunity? Is it so that Rassie Erasmus can blood the youngsters that he wanted to originally have done with the SAA game and stuff like that? I see we've got UV Roadblocks and Kwasi and Grant Swartz in the comments. Grant Swartz said it was sad to see the scenes back home. Yeah, it's not been great. Thankfully, nothing much happening in the immediate vicinity from where I live, so I haven't seen anything firsthand. But it's spreading and it's not getting great. And hopefully, we can get things under control very, very quickly. But yeah, so in terms of Wednesday, we'll start with Wednesday. We'll start with Wednesday, shall we? We'll talk about the game and the team that we're sort of expecting to see. And so that's the France to Australia. We're going to pull up both sides, both the British and Irish Lions side as well as the SAA side. Now, we're not going to do a preview or anything like that. We're just going to be sort of looking at what the thinking was for the side itself, because our official preview will be coming out tomorrow morning. We'll also be live tomorrow night, by the way. I'm actually very, very excited. It's going to be strange, but we will be live tomorrow night for a fan forum preview, which I will not be a part of. So that should be quite interesting. It's officially the first sort of fan preview that I won't be involved in, but Lekanya will be with you tomorrow at about 7:30. 7:30 it will be, so it'll be a bit earlier tomorrow. So mark your clocks. The video's already up, so you can go set a reminder for yourself on the actual video so that you don't miss the video. So if you just go there and you turn the notifications on, then you'll get a notification when we do go live for that match and for that preview tomorrow night. There's some very, very cool guests. The director of rugby of Queen's College, as well as at, I think it was Hudson Park. Some very, very big, good rugby brains on tomorrow night, which will be really, really cool. And that's pretty much why I started the channel. The whole idea of this channel was to try and, facilitate fan forward and fan voice, and to try and get, give fans the voice. That's the whole point, being for the fans, by the fans. That was the idea of where we are, what we want to do as a channel. So, very excited that tomorrow, like something like tomorrow can happen where, I'm working, so for example, so I can't be a part of it, but we can still have, 4 people come on and share their opinion and share their thoughts on what's going to happen on Wednesday. So that should be quite a cool show tomorrow night. So make sure you come and hang out tomorrow. We'll also be live tomorrow during the day. France versus Australia at 12 o'clock South African Standard Time, which should be quite interesting because, first of all, I don't really like Australia rugby. I don't really like Australia sport after they decided not to come down for that cricket series earlier this year. I think that, a little bit of a middle finger to them. And then in the same breath said, we won't travel to you, but we're happy to have you here for the British and Irish Lions tour, and we'll pocket all the change. So I'm definitely going to be rooting for France tomorrow. And then obviously we'll be live on Wednesday for the watch along versus for the SAA versus the British and Irish Lions. We'll be live for the player rating show after that. We'll have we're going to be trying to be both Warren Gatlin as well as Rassie Russell's press conference. So we'll be bringing you to those as well. But let us start with the South Africa A side. This is the side that we'll be playing on Wednesday. Now, when I talk about 11 World Cup winners, well, the only players in that starting lineup who did not win a World Cup medal back in 2019 are Joseph Dwebe, Marco van Staden, Jasper Wiese, and Morné Steyn. The only players who didn't start the World Cup final, the only players. Let's go. The only players that weren't in the 23, apart from those players, was Spur Nkosi and Trevor Nyakane, simply because he was injured. Stephen Kitzel coming off the bench, but apart from that, and I think with Moss coming off the bench as well. But I mean, if you look at that backline, de Klerk, Dale Indy, Colby, Leroux, they all started the World Cup final. So to call this an SAA side is definitely, it's not an A side. Let's be very honest. But it's a side we have to feel. And I'm just very upset. And I kind of at this stage, we'll talk about it now, but at this stage, I'd like to see the Stormers play this weekend. I think that for the integrity of the tour, that's a better option. But I'm very frustrated because I was very excited about the SAA game because of what an SAA game is. An SAA game is supposed to be the Springbok B team. It is the official Springbok second team, which means that all the fringe players, all the players who don't make the final 23, maybe even don't make the final 30-man squad, this is where they get to play. Even so you can include some first-string players, not necessarily starting players, players on the bench, so like a Hershey Yankees, will probably start in the SAA side. Your bench will often sort of play, but we don't have that. We've got, Etzebeth, Mostert, Detoy, Kitsoff, even Trevor, Faf de Klerk, Nkosi, Delendi, Colby, Leroux. They pretty much all start for the Springboks, really. So it's not an SAA side, which is different. I see it in the comment there from Kwasi. It is a little bit different from it. So the emerging box used to be called the emerging box, and it was also at one stage a part of like under 20s. And then it sort of all officially became an official B team, official second team. So, if you think of the type of team we could have said, I think that, we could have seen a front row of Joseph Dwebe, like even an Oxenchair, I think is an SAA side, as well as, maybe like Koenie Oosthuizen, for example. You could have a lock combination of Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg, Marvin Ori, or Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg and a Dupree brother, or you could see a loose trio of Marco van Staden, Jean-Luc Dupree, Dan Dupree, or you could see Jasper Wiese, Marco van Staden, and Jean-Luc. We could be seeing Hershey Yankees with Alton Yankees and a backline of Yao Penkler, Roscoe Speckman, Damien Willems at inside center, want to see a Simonani at outside center, and Napoli Fassi at full back. That is what, for me, would have been an SAA side. And then on the bench, you could have had players like you could have had you probably had Morné Steyn on the bench. You have Kobus Reinach on the bench. You would have, Spook and Corsi could start, for example, and you could have Apple Fassi. I'm not saying that you can't have anybody in what would normally be your sort of final 23, but it kind of for me, it's more sort of your bench players and then the rest. When you think of a 46-man squad, that's 2 23s. So for me, I kind of would have said, this is my 23 for this first test. Right, you guys are the A side. You guys will play that A team. maybe bring in a couple of players who need game time. So I can understand Damien Delindi needs game time. If Arcus Namer was fit, he'd need game time. He was available and stuff like that. So it's a very, very difficult one. So, you can understand why we've gone with it. We've kind of been forced to go with it. And that's why Rassie Erasmus wants to have that game on Saturday. He wants another game on Saturday between the SAA game because he wants to be able to play his real SAA game. I think, he wants to have Similani playing against the British and Irish Lions. He wants to have, I don't know, who else is Epilele Fassi playing against the British and Irish Lions. And it's a very tricky situation with regards to this weekend because if they do not play the Stormers, it means the Stormers will not have played the British and Irish Lions this tour, which means that none of those players in the squad would have had the opportunity to play against the British and Irish Lions. And the reason I think it would be so harsh for the Stormers is because they've done nothing wrong. They've gone into isolation. They've been they're in the bubble. They went into on Thursday. So they went in actually, I think, earlier than what they were supposed to, in case their game had to be moved. So they've really sort of done everything. They've planned around this game. They've used a rotation policy in the Currie Cup to plan around this game. It's one of the biggest games in the union. I feel very sorry for the Bulls players, but there was an outbreak. So you can't sit there going, well, you were going to play, but then you stuffed up. Whereas the Stormers, might be robbed of the chance despite not doing anything wrong. And I think what we probably would have done in hindsight is had all these teams going into bubbles earlier. And what could have happened is on Thursday, for example, the British and Irish Lions could have flown to Cape Town and they could have played against the Stormers on Saturday, for example, instead of the Bulls. Or they could have played against the Stormers, or the Stormers could have come up and played at Loftus. If we had those sort of procedures and in place, which I think in hindsight they probably would do. But we've still got that poll that's going. It's sort of looking sort of towards moving in place. So I'll try and get a couple of the comments involved. So Grant Toss from a biased Western Province fan, the Stormers must play the Lions. Vic says that the Stormers play will never see the likes of Similani playing against the Lions. Yeah, look, I think somebody like Similani is young enough that he might. I think, those really young players. Similani is what, 22, 23 years old? He's 23 years old. So in 12 years, maybe we won't see him, players are things. So yeah, you might never see him play against the British and Irish Lions. Somebody like Epilele Fassi, like those 21-year-olds, we could see again. And I think a lot of the provincial unions we probably would see again. Cost says I prefer Kiwis on any day over Aussies, 100%. Good evening to Monica Solo. Good evening, Scott Graham. Good evening, Renor Plays. Godswan says the SAA team is stronger than the one that would play against Argentina in the Rugby Championship while the first team is playing for New Zealand. Yeah, I'm very interested to see what will happen with that game. Me and Nakanu kind of disagree because I said that I think that we'll go with the weak game against Argentina, and he reckons it would be a safer bet to play a strong team against Argentina, make sure you get those 2 home victories, and then go overseas. I think there is actually a week break after the 2 Argentina games, which I suppose would allow a bit of time. Scott Graham says, I don't think the DHL Stormers versus British and Irish Lions match. It's not the British and Irish Lions' fault. And Renal Player says, but they're desperate to get these guys some game time. It does make sense to play more Bok B team. It's such a frustrating one because you can understand both sides. You can understand Rassie Erasmus. First of all, he has to play these players. He has to. We can't imagine having, Cheslin Colby, Spirin Corsi, Damien Delindi, Lacagna Willie Leroux, Faf de Klerk playing their first game for the Springboks since the World Cup final in the first test against the Lions. You don't want to have that. But at the same time, as it was mentioned by Vic, it's if you don't manage to get your normal SAA side, we want to see the Similani might never play the British and Irish Lions. Damien Willemse, at this stage he's on the bench, but he might not be on the bench. Something like Alton Yankees. Think of somebody like Alton Yankees. He's been such a good player for the Lions for so many years. If he doesn't make that, Springbok 23, for example, in those 3 tests, and say he doesn't make the final cut here, he never faces the British and Irish Lions. Quacker Smith might never face the British and Irish Lions, and it's such an injustice. So, but at the same time, it's so difficult to say to the Stormers, you've done everything right, but because we had issues with our thing, we now need you to give up a game of a lifetime. There are players at that Stormers side who will never, ever, in their careers, ever play a game as big as the British and Irish Lions on Saturday. I think there's some very good. There are players like Evan Lewis. He'll play Springboks one day, but there are players there who will not play Springboks. Tim Sweel will not probably play for the Springboks. So Saturday is the last chance for players like that. I mean, that's the biggest game they'll ever play. I'll tell you right now, Tim Sweel starts at fly half at number 10 on Saturday. It's the biggest game of his career. It's the biggest game of his career. It's the biggest game for a lot of these careers. I mean, so in an ideal situation, you have an SAA game on Saturday and you postpone the Stormers game and you say to the British and Irish Lions, would you consider playing another midweek game? Would you consider playing on a Tuesday or a Tuesday after one of the games? Would you consider an SAA game on Saturday, a Stormers game on Tuesday, and then the 3-test match series, or SAA game on Saturday, test and thing? And because look, I mean, during the 2017 tour, we'll go and find the official tour schedule, but there was a midweek game between tests. I'm just going to the Lions website and stuff like that. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. You know, I want to chat about this. I want to see what everybody thinks. I think it's quite a difficult scenario, and I think that there's no right answer, which always makes it so difficult. I find the official tour and the dates and stuff like that. Here we go. So it went. So this is back 2017 where they had a much longer tour than they're having this time. They went as follows. They played Saturday, 3rd of June. They played New Zealand Barbarians. Then they went Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday Highlanders, Saturday Maori All Blacks, Tuesday Chiefs, All Blacks on the weekend, Tuesday Hurricanes, All Blacks, All Blacks. So they actually had, first of all, they had a Tuesday game before the first test, and they had a Tuesday game in between the first test and the second test. So, you know, that is probably the only option. That is the only sort of ideal scenario is if you say to Warren Gatland as men, listen, we need an extra game. We want to play our SAA game. We want the Stormers to get their chance. Would you consider playing against the SAA or the Stormers on Tuesday next week? In Cape Town. You can be in Cape Town. You don't have to break anything. And I think they might, because it sounds like they could have up to sort of 2 or 3 players actually joining that British and Irish Lions squad. Marcus Smith was flown in over the weekend. He's actually in camp. He was posted today. They officially unveiled him. So let me get rid of our SAA side here. So he's actually in camp. There's also now rumors that Alwyn Jones is set to join the camp, as well as Ronan Kelleher. And that sounds like that decision is going to be made tomorrow, because basically what they're saying is that they're worried with the bubble, if there are players who test positive, for example, in the front row, and they have to all go into isolation, there's a very big worry that suddenly, you know, we won't have front rows and we'll have to have uncontested scrums, which is a genuine concern. So now they're thinking, you know, maybe they bring in extra players into this Lions squad. And if they do, if you are bringing in Alwyn, I mean, if for example, you brought in Alwyn Jones, Rowan Kelleher, and Marcus Smith into the squad now, and you haven't released anybody, that's 3 extra players. That's a 39-man squad. So I feel like in a 39-man squad, you could field a 15 on Tuesday that wouldn't even be in the test side. And then you had a couple of players coming off the bench relatively late, and then they go on, and those players, you know, will be your test starters. So I think it's definitely plausible. We've seen in the past that you can play a Tuesday, Saturday, even in a test match week, but it hasn't been planned for as yet. And I really, I mean, they were talking about already with the Bulls. You know, maybe they would have a Bulls game. Look, you know, if the stars were aligned and they really were that keen to play games, you could go like Stormers next week Tuesday, Bulls Tuesday afterwards. It would be a hell of a schedule. I don't think it would be feasible, but I mean, if they really wanted to go balls to the walls, they could do that and have another SAA game. That would then be a 10-match tour like we saw back in 2017. This is only an 8-match tour at this stage. Grant Swell says Warren Gatland will never agree to another SAA team. The risk is too big for his team. Well, yeah, that is the thing. So Rassie Rasmus pretty much said that he's begging them to replace the Stormers game on Saturday with the SAA. And he's saying it's from a safety point of view. I'm not sure how much of that is really true. He's saying that, you know, we saw that as soon as you get an outside team, when they played against Georgia, suddenly there were positive tests and stuff like that. I think that there were lots of external factors to just playing against Georgia. I don't think that's why there was an outbreak. I think there were players coming in. I think it wasn't the tightest bubble I think that we've ever seen, to be perfectly honest. So, you know, Gatland said categorically today, no. They said because as usual. I mean, they can't just possibly coordinate. They had both press conferences at the exact same time. Rassie Erasmus was busy talking to the media, whilst Warren Gatland was busy talking to the media. They couldn't possibly have just moved one half an hour. But they then put it to Warren Gatland and said, Rassie Erasmus wants to play on Saturday. What are your thoughts on that? And he said, no, we will not be playing them on Saturday, referring to the SAA. So Warren Gatland is adamant that they will not play the SAA game this weekend. And then, so as Vic says, why do you think Gatland doesn't want to play against other SAA sides against? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a case of he's worried about injuries. As you say, he kept talking about the fact that they want to test them and stuff like that. But I suppose it's quite a big ask to be able to play. I mean, it's basic. You know what the problem is? Wednesday is a test match. Let's not beat around the bush. Wednesday is a test match. So to play a test match and another test match on Saturday and another test match next week, that's quite a big ask. But I would argue that Saturday, even if it's the SAA, it wouldn't be a test match. So I don't know if you come to an agreement and you say to Rusty, listen, we'll play against your SAA on Saturday, but I want to play your SAA. None of this stacking your side. I want to see your genuine second team. So that would be the only way I think that Warren Gatland would be happy, because to try and play 2 test matches in 4 days is a mammoth ask. Just because it's called the SAA doesn't mean the intensity is suddenly going to go down when you're naming so many test players. And so Rendell Place says the Lions have squad depth in between games. I think so. I think especially if they've added these 3 extra players, it takes their squad up to 40-man squad. So that's 23 and 17. So you could have 17 players who wouldn't even feature on next week's Saturday. Obviously, there's players who are down with COVID, and that's always an external factor and stuff like that you have to think about. I think that Stuart Hoggs is the player that tested positive and is currently in isolation. He's the only, him and Robbie Headshaw. It sounds like Hedshaw's gotten a bit of an injury. Apparently, should be available for this weekend. They're the only players who haven't featured in the last 2 games that we kind of expected to feature a bit more, and they're still not going to feature on Wednesday. So Vic says, I'm sure they can get the British Irish Lions that won't make the test teams to play a midweek game for the Stormers. Quast says, what is the news about Mario Toji? He was today. He was there today, actually. Thanks for tuning in, players. We'll see you soon. He's got to go. They spoke to Mario Toji today. He was actually in the press conference. He actually spoke very well to Mario Toji. He's got a nice sense of humor about him. Said some pretty powerful things about the sort of the racism and the reaction to the Euros final last night. I'm so over that. I'm so over this freaking nonsense. Every single time that a black player misses a penalty, we just wait for all the racist abuse. It's just, I'm over it. It's disgusting. But he's back. He had a bug basically over the weekend. He said it wasn't pretty, didn't look good. He said he's somebody that hates to miss a game, so you really have to be. He's somebody who reckons he has to be pretty down and out if he's going to miss a game. So apparently it wasn't pretty, but he's all good to go. So this is the Lions side that we'll be seeing on Wednesday. So you can see Itoja is there. I think it's getting quite close to a test side. I mean, obviously they made this without realizing that the SAA was going to be so strong. But I mean, you've got some hell of a players there. I think it's a very good front row. Mario Toja, Ian Henderson. I don't see why that couldn't be the starting lock combination. Josh Davidi, I think, is a very good player. I'm very keen to see how he goes. And then you've got Tom Curry and Tipper Falatau. I think that was probably, going to be Spartan Navidi. I think probably Tadek Byrne. I think Byrne, Curry, Falatau was maybe Watson there was probably going to be the loose trio about 3 or 4 months ago. But since then, you've got to think that Jack Conan has looked better in this tour so far. You've got to think that Hamish Watson is outplaying Curry at the moment. Tadek Burns had been very good, so I think he'll probably sit there. But Navidi's got a very nice chance to mistake a claim. If there was any game that these Lions players really need to pitch up for, it's this week, Wednesday, because they're playing a test match. There's no other way to sort of beat around the bush there. It is a test match this week. That's the reality. So I'm very keen to see Reece Hammett and Josh Adams. Reece Hammett, I mean, they're giving Johan van der Merwe a rest. I reckon him and Adams are pretty close to the final 15. What's quite interesting is seeing Watson at full back. Elliot Daly on the bench. I mean, he's been involved in every single game, I think, as Elliot Daly. I'm trying to think if he played that the Lions game. I think he did. So I think Elliot Daly's been involved in every single game. You got Sam Simmons on the bench again, so you sort of wonder if he's not. I mean, Adam Beard on the bench again. I think it's interesting because you've got to start playing your test players because you want them to get time. And Conor Murray starting for the first time on the tour, but you've also got to, you still want to give these players a chance. You don't want to just in those first 2 or 3 games say, I'll play you and I'll play you, and then right, cool, you're done. You're done. You've had your time. You don't want to say to a player like Adam Beard, who's flown in right at the end, right, well, we're into week 2, call it 3. We're into week 3 of the tour. That's it. You won't pull on the jersey again. You're going to train now for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So it's always a bit of a juggling act. And I really like the fact that Warren Gatland is adamant that every single player will play. So he said Marcus Smith will play on this weekend. So we will see Marcus Smith playing in the Lions jersey. I really, really like that about him. I really like the fact that he understands that it's a tour and that every single player deserves a chance. I mean, imagine coming out on this and not getting onto the field, being in a bye bubble for 4 or 5 weeks. What's it, 5, 6 weeks? About 6 weeks. 7 weeks, really, if you look at the tour at the front. Imagine being in this bye bubble for 7 weeks and not getting onto the field. It would be horrible. Horrible. Quas, thank you so much for the donation. I really, really appreciate that. I hope you're well and good to see you back in the chat lately. Vic says SAA versus the Sharks. Yeah, I'm sure the Sharks are ready to step in. You know what the problem is? I think is under normal sort of non-COVID times, you can make a plan, can't you? You go and say, right, the Boks need a game. We're going to suspend Currie Cup for a week. When we're going to do an invitational side that will take on the Boks. Stormers, you guys crack on. But we'll put together a side of the Lions, Sharks, Bulls, Cheetahs, Pumas, and we'll quickly put together an invitational side. We'll play that on Saturday. Currie Cup can continue next week. I think that they would probably look to do that if it wasn't COVID times, but it's just so difficult with bio bubbles and stuff like that to try and make that happen. I mean, if the Boks have got enough players, you could almost have the SAA, the genuine SAA, playing against the Lions on Saturday, and then you could say to the Stormers, well, you can play our test side, or else Springboks must have an internal game, but you don't really want to have an internal game. It's just always things that seem to happen in internal games. So I don't know what they're going to do, but in terms of the British and Irish Lions side, I think we're getting quite close to a test side. I think we'll probably see one on Saturday, if it is going to be the last game. There's been no murmurs about potential midweek game. I don't quite know why. I really, really thought that they would be, try and push. For me, it's so feasible. If they're going to have a 40-man squad by the end of the week, it's so feasible for me to play Saturday, Tuesday, and still have a full test side on the Saturday next week. I don't think it's that big of an ask. You could have such a good British Irish Lions side to play against the Stormers on Tuesday. Wouldn't be an issue. Grant Swart says an SAA team coached by Jimmy House, that could have been tasty. Yeah, I'm very upset about the fact that we won't see an SA invitational side. I really, really enjoy invitational games. Go and find players who are not capped and have them play in. What was I going to say? Yeah, and just have them play in a one-off game with new coaches. You can go and get players like, I don't know, Billy Engelbrecht, players like Ruan Okia, Vince Tutuka, those sort of players. Albert Lowe, your Ivan Ruises, your all these sort of players who are uncapped and you chuck them together for one sort of game. I really, really enjoy invitational sides. They never win. They never win. That's the reality. Invitational rugby doesn't win. That's why Barbarians don't win games. World 15s don't win games. You can put together the best players in the world, but unless they've trained together and they play together and stuff like that, they genuinely don't win rugby matches. It's unfortunately not that easy, which is why it was so surprising when they had the Toyota Invitational, that they chucked that team together and they managed to win there. Aiden says, I'm so nervous for the Boks. Well, it's the nice thing, I suppose, is that you can lose on Wednesday and it won't dent your test record. It's not a test match. So, for example, Joseph Drever is not getting a test cap on Wednesday. He's not going to be capped on Wednesday. I think he's the only person who hasn't played a game. Nicholas Jansen van Rensburg off the bench won't be capped because it's not a test match. So I suppose it's a nice thing to have test match intensity, to basically be called a test match, but it's an unofficial test match. Quite said this tour does not feel right, not like 2009, 2017. I know the problem is, and I think we all kind of know it is that we knew that this tour was not going to be what it was supposed to be. I was supposed to have already watched a match in the stadiums. I was supposed to watch a match. I think it was this weekend. No? Yes, it was supposed to be this weekend. This weekend I was supposed to be watching. It was supposed to be the Bulls. I think it was supposed to be this weekend. I was supposed to be watching Bulls, and then I had tickets to every single one of the tests. So that's what we were supposed to be doing. I wasn't supposed to be. I was supposed to be talking to you guys here and then taking you on the road, doing a YouTube live, sitting outside the stadium and having chats and stuff like that. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I want to do in the future. I want to be able to take you guys with me and say, let's go do a stadium tour. Let's go watch this match. For the Sevens, for example, I want to be inside the stadiums and saying, this is what it looks like. This is what the press box looks like. That's the whole idea of this channel, to be able for me to try and take you guys closer to what happens in behind the scenes. So the whole tour hasn't felt right because I haven't left my room. I've done an entire thing and I haven't left my room. I've, haven't gone out and met my friends. I haven't been able to say, right, let's go and watch this game with beers. Instead, I'll do it with you guys, which is great. But it's not quite the same as afterwards, being able to say at like a 6 o'clock game at 8:30, finish my shows and say, right, I'm off to the pub to celebrate. So it's been quite frustrating in that respect. Grant Swart says invitational teams are fun. I never win, but are always fun to watch. Exactly. That's the thing. Look at the Barbarians. They're always an exciting team to watch. And that's the nice thing about invitational sides. And it's very, very entertaining. And I think that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest loss. I think if we don't get the another SAA game, and those players don't get to play, that will be a huge loss. But I still think that the SAA is one of my favorite games. I'm not SAA invitational. I love invitational sides. I love seeing players who haven't had the opportunity saying, right, prove you should be a Springbok. Or players who maybe are old and never really had the chance. Because there's some good players that just sometimes will never play for the Springboks because of the incredible depth that we've got. So yeah, that's what we missed there. What are your score predictions? Yeah, so actually, so what are we predicting here? What are you predicting? Look, we'll talk about this match more in depth tomorrow with the shows. I don't want to go too much into depth with it, so we can get some early predictions of what you guys are going with in terms of scorelines. But tomorrow, the Kanya Chongweni will be live with a couple of very cool people tomorrow. There can be a panel of 4 people who are going to be doing a proper in-depth discussion. Well, I'm not going to be there, but they'll still do more there. But Reina Opperman makes a nice point. Mornay staying up against the British and Irish Lions for a second time. I think that's. I can't actually decide whether Mornay Steyn is currently our second choice fly half, if that's the thinking, or if it is a little bit of a, it's nice to be able to play the British and Irish Lions. I don't think there's much between him and Alton Yankees in terms of who I would pick. I think that I know what the problem is. I think Mornay Steyn was playing fantastic rugby at for Currie Cup and Rainbow Cup and stuff like that. I think that he's been playing really well. I don't know if at his age, and I'm the last person to always try and bring age into this, but I don't know if he has the capability to be able to play test match rugby. Playing against the Pumas, playing against the Lions, playing against the Sharks stuff is very different to playing against, a full 15-man test side. So I'm interested to see how he goes on Wednesday. I'm a little bit worried about him. I think that he's getting on with it. So, I hope he proves me wrong, and I think that he'll probably be all right. But there is a little bit of concern. People were raising the same concern about Frans Steyn, saying that he just looks like he can't keep up. He looked all right at Rainbow Cup. They're saying that he can't really keep up with the game anymore. His body isn't quite there. He himself says he hates running these days because he's not. It's not as easy as it used to be for him. So look, there are some players. You look at like an Alan Wynne-Jones who just doesn't seem to be slowing down. But players age at different rates. So some players, Dwayne Vermeulen looks like he's still really there. He's perfect for the sort of level. But I think that there are some players who I think would struggle to make the step up. Chislin Boyson says, Eden, you have a right to be. Seeing the British and Irish Lions team and every player that comes in here has so much to offer. But then again, the Sharks played well and exposed some of their flaws. Yeah, I thought the Sharks put in quite a good show for 45 minutes. I think it's a very unfortunate red card. As usual, people have overreacted about the whole thing. I said it myself. It was very stupid and idiotic. But, Jaden Hendricks is not going to go into retirement. He doesn't need to now be benched and stuff like that. I think that was a bit of an overreaction. Vic reckons that the Boks are going to get a 4-0 sweep. The Lions scrum suck. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big avenue for the Boks the SAA on Wednesday. Is the set piece, because I think the lineouts have looked all right for the Lions, but the scrums haven't been impressive. They haven't gone and really dominated any big pack just yet. So it's a big area I think of concern for Gatland. Godswat says these warm games are important for the players. These games could be en route for players to be big day in Europe. That kind of was my almost a little bit of a worry, Vincent Tutuka goes and puts in that performance against the British and Irish Lions. How many overseas teams are sitting there going, we know that we can offer him more money. Thankfully, he's just signed a new contract with the Lions. But, there will be players who will be impressing and out there for potential contracts and stuff like that. And says, true, I think we can nail the scrums and line-up drives. I just hope we can handle this match today to not be too rusty. I think we will be quite rusty. I think it'll take us a while to get going. I think that's going to be pretty normal if we do, and I'm not going to sort of throw the maybe out with the bathwater if it happens. I'm just frustrated. I'm excited for the game. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. I don't know how you guys are feeling about this game. I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. It's a very big game. But there's just that little bit of me. I want to see the Similani against the Lions. I want to see Apelele Fassi against the Lions. I want to see Alpenkle get a chance against the Lions. I want to see Damian Willemse inside center. I wanted to see these sort of players get a chance. I don't really like the Dupree brothers. I mean, I think they're very good players, but I've never really been massive fans of them in the past. But I'd like to see what they can do. I'd like to see what Nicholas Stanson van Rensburg can do starting a match against the British and Irish Lions. I was so excited for that. I mean, it goes without saying that your test matches are always your highlights, but I love seeing SAA games. I love seeing invitational games. I really like seeing the Unions play against British and Irish Lions. I couldn't give a damn what the scoreline is. I really couldn't. Some people watch for the result. I watch for the performance and for the game. Obviously, when it comes to test matches, it's all about results. But in other matches, I want to see big performances. I want to see that Pepsi Buthelezi performance we saw last week Wednesday, that Werner Koch performance. That's what for me makes some of these games so special and exciting. And so that if we don't get another SAA game, if I don't see Similani against the Lions, I'm just saying it because I'm a Lions fan. I really was really excited to see what he can do. But if we don't see sort of players like that, I'll just have that little bit of regret within me, because I just think that's what makes the Lions tour so special. And I think that we're losing more and more of that. So I'd almost be as sad if we don't get the SAA game as I just want both. I'm gonna be honest. I want to see Stormers players get an opportunity to play. I want to see Evan Roos run into, Hamish Watson. I want to see Sibele Sanatla have a go at Louis Zammit. I want to see what Everett van der Merwe can do. I think there's some good players in that Stormers outfit. I think that they would struggle a little bit, but I think that there are some nice players. Let's see what Marcel Tennyson can do. Let's see what Andre Hugo Venter, maybe the son of Andre Venter, maybe he gets his first sort of taste of big rugby against the British and Irish Lions. There are those sort of stories that we're going to miss out on if this game gets cancelled. So it's frustrating that we've been forced into a situation where we've had to play such a strong side on Wednesday, because I think a lot of players, risk not playing against the British and Irish Lions, and it's going to be very sad either way. But such is the situation, unfortunately. Sean Ferris says, I personally think it would be unfair on the Stormers if the game until they get scrapped. They would have to wait 12 years. Well, that's the thing. And especially get scrapped in something they've done nothing wrong. I'm a big advocate of we play one of the games on Tuesday. Play the SAA again on Saturday. Keep the Stormers in the bye bubble for 2-3 more days. And they play on Tuesday. And then we play a test match on Saturday. The British and Irish Lions will live. They'll be fine. Sean Ferris, and for me, I expected this after the second Georgia game got cancelled. Well, that was the thing. We kind of knew that there were certain players that were going to have to play. But I also think, you know what it is? At the same time, I understand Rassie Rasmus's logic. I understand that why we need to play. But at the same time, I think there are players playing that don't need to play. Does Peter Steph-Toy need to play on Wednesday? Does he really? I understand it in terms of Springbok patterns, but this is the World Player of the Year. This is a player who's been playing for Springboks for a long time. This is somebody who understands his role backwards. Does he need to play on Wednesday? Will playing Jean-Luc Dupree compromise whatever we're trying to do? Does Trevor Nyakane have to play on Wednesday? I don't know if he's trying to prove fitness or whatever. Does he have to play on Wednesday? Do we have to play both Franco Mostert and Eben Etzebeth? Can we not play Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg ahead of them? So I think that there are a couple of selections I would have changed. I can understand Cheslin Colby. I can understand I can understand centre pairing as well. I can understand most of those selections, but could we not have played Apelele Fassi at fullback or Damian Willemse at fullback? Would it have made that much of a difference? Because those are players really we played against Georgia, and he looked all right. He looked fine. No issues there. Cheslin Colby has to play for the Springboks, fine. But, does Pete Steph-Toy, he's played a full Rainbow Cup season. He's looking good. We know he's good. He played really well against Georgia. He's looking solid. Franco Mostert, Eben Etzebeth, they looked sharp against Georgia. Do they have to play on Wednesday? That's something of my frustration is that there's just players I would have liked to have seen. Because also, here comes the problem. Morné Steyn pulls a hamstring on Wednesday. Touch what he doesn't. Morné Steyn pulls a hamstring on Wednesday. Andre Pollard is fit in theory. He's currently got COVID at the moment. So Morné Steyn doesn't play on Wednesday. or pulls a hamstring on Wednesday, for example, Andre Pollard's touch and go for next week. Alton Yankees must now run out for the Springboks next week on the back of what? 10 minutes against Georgia. I expect to do well. So as much as we also need to play players, I think players like Trevor, even Kitshoff to a certain degree, Franco Mostert, Evan Etzebeth, P-Steph the Toy, Villaroo are so settled that I think that we actually risk not giving other players a chance and not being ready for potential injuries. Next week, we saw against the Lions, and their first game against Japan, they lost Justin Tipuric and Alan Jones. Finn Russell's a doubt for the tournament. Owen Farrell's carrying an injury. Robbie Henshaw's carrying an injury. Mario Toji's been sick. These things will happen. We probably will get some injuries next weekend. Unfortunately, it's just a reality of the game. And if we do, how many of these players are ready to step in? I mean, they haven't had much opportunity. How many of these players are in a good position to be able to step in and be able to slot in comfortably? So that's sort of another aspect that we could have maybe used the SAA game to sort of play the players you needed to play, and then maybe sort of given a bit of rotation. Question says, do you think if the violence looting increasing back home, are there any possibilities the Lions tour get cancelled? I don't think so. Not from a legitimate safety point of view, because I think if it does get bad, they'll just stay in Cape Town, where touch wood, there's been no issues in Cape Town. I think that the army's being deployed at the moment, so I think hopefully things will calm down by this week, hopefully by the end of this weekend. But I think that at this stage, I think if things get bad in Gauteng and there is a bit of a safety concern, they'll just stay in Cape Town. Especially if you look at Cape Town in terms of where they can stay by the stadium and stuff like that, it's not really areas where you'd have to worry about looting and stuff like that. It's usually sort of more in the informal settlements and stuff like that. I don't really see them storming Greenpoint. What are you going to loot at Greenpoint? The beach. So I don't think that'll be an issue. I hope not. It could, and it's more a bit of a moral thing, given the fact that we are on maybe even a verge of being in a state of disaster, stuff like that. Is it morally right to continue having this tour? It's difficult to say. Grant Swart says, I think this is a lose-lose game for the British and Irish Lions. They should beat this SAA team, but it could come as a cost of injuries, and if they lose, they could be damaged to the morale for test matches. Oh no, it's a very big mental game, I think, this weekend. I think it's a very big, as you said, I think it is a bit of a lose-lose. I think if they win, do you get drawn to a false insecurity? Is there an issue with injuries? And if you lose, you're sitting there thinking, shit, well, that wasn't even the best Springbok side. They'll tell themselves, well, that's not the best British and Irish Lions side either. But momentum's a strange thing. Vic says the main box should have organized a match with the Bulls for Saturday and played the SAA this Saturday. I just think, the Bulls are scheduled to play this weekend, and there's been no issue about them not. So I don't quite know what's happening there. Kwasi said they probably would have moved the All Games to Cape Town for the out. That's what he's saying. Matthew Dixon says, good evening, Matthew. Says, I would like to see Springbok Green and Springbok Gold play each other, and then the team come together on Saturday, extra game time, and I'm up for fringe players. Yeah, that was another opportunity. If you had played, you should have tried and play a bit of an internal game. Would have been actually quite cool. If we had said right SAA game on Saturday and then a Springbok Gold versus Green or SAA on Wednesday, Springbok Gold versus Green on Saturday, I think it could have been a potential option. But yeah, it's just always so complicated, isn't it? Sean O'Farrell says Ronan Kelleher is coming in for cover. I heard, yeah. So it sounds like Alan Jones, Ronan Kelleher, and Mark Smith's already here. Those two could be joining up. I also wouldn't be surprised if they bring over another prop, just for the front row issues. Pat Bassman, good evening. Pat says, as a Brit Lions fan, I'd like to see the strongest team South Africa can put up against us. Even if we lose, that will be a fair competition. Well, the idea is that we'll give that to you next weekend, and we'll try and give it to you for 3 weeks in a row. The whole idea of the SAA was to sort of see where our next best were. And I think the problem is we've seen two extremes, haven't we? We've seen our really, really weakened unions. I did a video talking about why we mustn't worry about the fact that they're that weak. So you've got the weakened unions, and then what was supposed to be a bit of a hybrid, it was supposed to be stronger than all our unions, but not quite a Springbok side. That was what we were supposed to see on Wednesday, but we've gone from very weak unions to basically a full-blooded Springbok side. So it's one extreme to the next. Peter Stewart, how ill are the Boks with who have COVID? I haven't heard anything about. They haven't said much about it, unfortunately, in terms of their condition. I haven't heard that anyone's struggling. I haven't heard anything that the players who have COVID are in a bad space. I think from the most of it, they're pretty much all right, and that's more of an issue of them having to isolate rather than being sick or anything. The nice thing is majority of them have been vaccinated. which doesn't stop you from getting it. Let's be very clear. It does not stop you from getting COVID. It does not stop you from passing on COVID. But hopefully it means that the effects are lessened and that you are very unlikely to die or anything like that from it. So I haven't heard anything about, for example, like Andre Pollard not feeling well, not being ruled out, for example. I think it's the case they have to sort of serve their isolation periods, which in theory should come up, this week. So those players should be back in theory for next weekend. If they have to bring in players, they do. Look, they brought in Fez Mbata and Lisa Koboka. So those players are back with the Springboks. I mean, that's a 48-man squad. They've got a 48-man squad at the moment, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's unheard of, really. Vic says that first green and gold match was a dud. I actually quite like the concept of it. I think that, I think the quality of it wasn't great because of the situation that when we played in it. But I think the concept was very cool. The trial match. I think if you play that, if you had to play that sort of mid-season or at the end of the season, I think it's a really, really cool idea. I think that, as I said, I think it probably wasn't the best game of rugby because people were so rusty. But as a preseason, for example, for the Boks, I mean, if you had to sort of play, so when we have our tours next year, for example, and you've got an incoming tour in June, I actually got no idea who's supposed to be coming down here. I'm not sure if it's been confirmed yet. But if you did that, for example, as a trial match, and you said right at the end of the United Rugby Championship and stuff like that, Springbok Gold versus Springbok Green, people that are now in form and stuff like that, I think it would be a hell of a fixture. You could even have a quadrangular. You could have an overseas team and a Springbok Gold. You could have Springbok Gold and green and blue and red. You can get like 4 teams together and just have a bit of a mini tourney. That'd be quite cool. It's me against Rusty played another master of picking a strong 18. I think it was fairly inevitable. I think he just had to. I'm not sure how much of it is like a mind-blowing thing of how much of it's been forced. We also actually don't know how much players are available. So, I mean, that's the one thing I must say. Whilst I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not going to see some players, we don't know actually who's available. I think there's 34 of them down in Cape Town at the moment. So they had to leave quite a few behind. But, I mean, out of the 34, there are players who would have normally been in the SA side, which aren't in. Welcome, Matthew Dixon, to the latest member of the Fair Sports Members Club. Thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate that. And then Hanley Null says, "Do you think we can win the A team?" I don't see why not. I don't think there's a reason we can't. I think at the British and Irish Lions, especially against the Sharks in the second thing, had a few weaknesses. I think we saw a few chinks in their armor. It's basically a Springbok side, so you've got it back. And I also don't think it's the strongest British and Irish Lions side they could put out. So it's almost like a 3/4. I think both sides are playing at 3/4. I think it's about sort of 15 out of 23 probably close to what we'll see in the final thing. Look, it's not the strongest bench for the Boks. I think you got Pollard, he'll come back. You've probably got Kobus Reinhardt, who I think for me is probably a hit. Although actually, I haven't said that, Ashley Yankees looked very good when he came against Georgia. But you've got to try and get your Arceus Neyman's back. Well, he won't be there available for the next 2 tests, maybe towards the end. But you've got to get your Luat Diaga's back. You've got to get your Frans Malherbers, your Oxenchair, or whoever's going to be the loose head, your Bongi and Manambis, all those sort of players back, stuff like that. But I think it's pretty close to being about 75% there. Kenny Kuhn says, David Linder may be starting for SA team. I'll be cheering him on from Munster. Who, please to know, I had 2 Munster boys in our Barbarian side that I put out this morning. And short of I know in the Autumn Island have in October and a trip to the States to play USA there in November. It's Japan, New Zealand, Argentina. That's a hell of a fixture list. Imagine going from Japan to New Zealand to Argentina. Well, not going, but I'm saying those are your fixtures. I don't think there's been a tour announced for 2022 for an incoming tour. Probably only be announced next year. Yeah, from what I can see, there's no incoming tour. I'm trying to think of who should come. We had Ireland. It was a while ago, actually, when old CJ Stunder murdered Pat Lambie and put him in retirement. We had England was the last one we had back in 2019. So who should come? I mean, Wales and Scotland are due. France, please. Do France have a tour for next year? I really want to see France come down here. That's what I want to see. Where are they going next year? Aha. I have found a. Okay, we're up against Wales. It's Wales next year. I don't mind playing Wales. Wales is quite cool. Probably prefer to play Wales than Scotland. But I would have loved to have played a 3-match series against that French side. So next year, right? Actually, I don't know if this has been confirmed. I haven't seen anything about these. But apparently next year it's Japan versus France. It's then South Africa versus Wales 3-match series, Australia versus England 3-match series, New Zealand versus Ireland 3-match series. I think England will beat Australia, and the New Zealand versus Ireland should be quite interesting. It'll be interesting to sort of see what sort of Irish side will be. But I don't mind Wales. We can have Wales. I would have just liked to have played that French team. I think it's just such a cool French team. I mean, I just like watching them. So to be able to watch them, be able to watch myself at the same time, hey, why not? Why not? Cross says Wales, yeah, you're correct, yeah. So it is Wales for next year. And Grant says, as long as you don't invite Namibia, that would mean as to could still be allowed back in the country. I'm interested to see what he does with Namibia. I think that I still could see it. I think he's not a bad coach. I think he was just a bit. Has anybody actually watched that Fed to the Lions, that Peter de Villiers? I actually might watch that after this, I think I might go watch it. There's been a documentary made about Peter de Villiers' time as Springbok coach. Hey, when you think about it, actually, he did get a very rough run. I mean, won the Tri Nations, won the British and Irish Lions tour, and everybody just told him that he inherited a side from Jake White. He didn't deserve anything. So very, very keen to watch the documentary and see what's going on there. In terms of other rugby for the week, because we've rambled on about for sort of 51 minutes, but in terms of the Currie Cup, we'll see Currie Cup on Saturday. Well, Friday, it's Pumas versus the Sharks. Saturday, it's Bulls versus the Griquas. And then it's Cheetahs versus the Lions. Obviously, no Western Province in action on Saturday. So we'll try and be live we're going to be live for at least one of those games. We will be live for at least on Friday. I'm trying to see if we can be live for the Lions versus the Cheetahs on Saturday. I should be able to do it. But we also might be doing Argentina versus Wales. And we also might be doing Fiji versus New Zealand, so we're not quite sure what we'll do this weekend. Matthew Dixon said, I'd like to see Romania, Russia, and Namibia come through for quadrangular series. Quite an interesting idea. Yeah, we just need more of those sort of teams doing well, don't we? Honey Nell says, SA struggled a bit in the Ireland game. All the three Pacific nations. I think the Pacific nations are about. I saw something today about. I think it's about a Tonga and a Fijian side joining New Zealand rugby in not New Zealand rugby, but in local competitions, which I thought was quite cool. And then in terms of other matches, so this weekend it's Argentina versus. The reason I'm doing this is because this is the last time we're going to be doing this show this week. I'm working tomorrow night. I'm working on Thursday night. I have to try and earn a living. It sucks. I'd rather just do this full time. So we won't have another news show this week. So in terms of international games this weekend, it's France versus Australia tomorrow as well on Saturday. So I mean, really, they can do 2 test matches in a bloody week. Why can't the Lions? Come on, Lions SAA Saturday as well. Stormers Tuesday. Let's move. Let's do it. Then there's Argentina versus Wales. There is. Let me try and get you the official fixtures. Rugby. Fixtures. Yeah, so this is what's happening on Saturday. So Saturday is Tonga versus Samoa at 6 a.m. South African time if you want to wake up early for that one. Then New Zealand versus Fiji. Australia versus France. Argentina versus Wales. It was supposed to be Georgia versus Scotland, but that's been cancelled due to COVID cases in both camps, actually. But the Currie Cup games will be Griquas versus the Bulls at 12:30, and Lions versus the Cheetahs at 2:45. So that'll be a nice sort of build-up for Stormers. Well, at this stage, Stormers versus the British and Irish Lions in the evening. And then next week, Wednesday, at this stage, we're going to have no British and Irish Lions game, but we'll have Currie Cup and stuff like that. And then we'll be back to sort of normal. So no more international. So things will slow down a little bit, which I think I'll appreciate. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new, because I've literally got a content schedule. This is what this week is looking like. This was today of all the stuff we have to put out. We've got over 50 videos that we've potentially got coming out this week in terms of all the press conferences, all the matches you want to cover and stuff like that. It's going to be a hell of a week. But if you want to be informed and want to know what's happening, we're going to try our best to make sure that is exactly what we will do. Cross says, I feel the media was awful. Was awful to Peter Villiers' downfall was he was unable to communicate properly. Yeah, I mean, he got really bad. It was such a strange thing. You look at it back now and you think, did we really judge a coach on the fact that he had a bit of a raspy, high-pitched voice? Is that really what we decided to do? a coach who delivered us trophies, a coach who actually did quite well. I mean, we'll look at Springbok coaches winning percentages. I mean, it's far better than Heineken Meyer. I'm trying to see if we've got a nice table of all the win percentages of all the Bok coaches. Oh, here we go. Post-isolation coaches. So Alistair Coetzee had a win percentage of 44%. Heineken Meyer had 66%. Peter Villiers had 62% win percentage. Jake White at 66. Rudolph Straudy at 52. Harry Viljoen at 53. Nick Mayer still has the best coach. I mean, he had a 71%. I mean, it's pretty. I think Rusty's is not too bad. Obviously, Jacques Nienaber currently has 100%. So I mean, yeah, Peter de Villiers, he played. There was 48 games under him, 130, lost 18, didn't draw any games. He scored 1,262 points for and 921 against. Yeah, his coaching time was really underrated. I felt. I think if we can go back now, we'll have to say sorry to him. We apologize. But I'm going to end off there. I'm actually going to watch this documentary. I think that's what this is calling for. I'm going to go and tuck in, maybe go and get something cold, something warm, because it's bloody cold here in Johannesburg. I mean, it's a max of like 14 degrees. So if you're in Europe and you think that's warm, you guys do you. We don't do that down here. So please do keep warm if you are in South Africa, or probably keep warm if you are in the UK. It's going to be a very, very busy week. So let's settle in. Tomorrow night, as I said, we'll be back. Lekanya will be live with his panel, which will be quite cool. I'll be live on Wednesday. We might be live on Thursday if I can get a panel together for other people. I can't do it, but we'll be live again on Saturday. We'll be live again on Friday as well. Lots and lots of videos. We've got Lekanya tomorrow, as well as, I think, it's an assistant coach. I'd imagine who we probably see. We saw Dion Davis last week. I might see Dion Davis again tomorrow. It's an assistant coach tomorrow. We've also got a press conference, Warren Gatlin, to review on the Peter Villiers docu. Maybe we will. Maybe I will, actually. But yeah, so we've got some press conferences tomorrow that will get out. We've got the post-match ones on Wednesday. We're getting access to a lot more press conferences, so we will we'll definitely keep you posted on that and stuff like that. And we're also currently reaching out to all the other United Rugby Championships. So, for example, I got confirmation today from Connacht that I'm part of the media mailing list. I'm trying to sort of speak to all the other clubs, like your Leicester, stuff like that, so we can try and get into those press conferences next season as well. Please, please, please do keep safe wherever you are in the world. In terms of COVID, stay at home, wear a mask, etc. For those in South Africa, please do keep safe. It's a very difficult time over here. So yeah, please keep safe and stay at home if you can. Stay away from any of the sort of looting and stuff like that. If you're a looter, stop fucking looting. It's not hard. And let's hope that by the weekend we've got something a little bit more positive. But yeah, hopefully we've got some rugby to pick us up this week. Please do keep safe. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow for France versus Australia. Otherwise, I'll see you all on Wednesday for South Africa or SAA versus the British and Irish Lions. Keep safe and see you guys soon.